People, welcome to UK Jazz Dance 2020, the roots of UK jazz culture, lifestyle movement. From my perspective, I'm going to be talking about intensive improvisation, how I used it throughout my life as a person to dance out stress, anxiety, pain that I had from suffering from dyslexia, suffering from the trauma of racism, trauma, violent bullying for many, many reasons, racism, special education needs, coming from impoverished background, jealousy. I had a lot of bullying in my primary school. Do you understand? It's important for people to understand. And people tried to kill me. So one of the key things, I've had life-threatening illnesses. I got knocked down by a car. I was involved in a house fire. That's all between 0 and 7 years as an individual. And then later on, I had sepsis. And then later on, I had carbon monoxide poisoning. I've been through quite a few things that have been life-threatening actually as an individual. Like I've got the 9 lives basically as an individual. But what happened was, for many years I was doing research into improvisation and its benefits, and I was aware of it, and I became an advocate of intensive improvisation, because intensive improvisation requires you to be spontaneous. Yeah, and what happens, you have to understand there's different types of improvisation. There's structured improvisation. But when you get really good at improvisation, there's levels, and then there's unstructured improvisation. And what happens is this is a process you need to learn, because to develop your learning, thinking, and development. Now, being a dancer and a choreographer, being a pioneer of UK jazz dance, which is an improvisational art form, what happens is, for me to develop, I constantly had to be involved in intensive improvisation. To be involved in intensive improvisation, you as an individual have to be extremely fit. People don't know the importance of it. You can't improvise at the highest level in a structured way or even a spontaneous way without it. But I had been conditioned from very, very young to engage in intensive improvisation, because my culture basically taught me to dance from an improvisational perspective, to engage in sports. I came from an impoverished background. We didn't have money to go classes. So basically, if you wanted to learn to dance, you just watch the television, saw some fragments, and you developed it yourself. If you wanted to learn to read, you couldn't afford private classes at that time, at a very young age, to the age of 8. So your parents did certain things, and they would encourage you to find creative ways to learn. So that's one of the things that you learn in a grassroots community in a huge way, is you self-learning. Our parents give you the first steps. My parents never had a high school education, but they got you to the first steps. And then when I went to primary school, they expected me to really engage in education at primary school, which I did as an individual. And what happened, they labelled me, unfortunately, as a special education needs child slow learner, not as a person with dyslexia. That meant, what's the difference? When you're diagnosed with dyslexia, you're seen as intelligent, but learn in a different way. When you're diagnosed as slow learning, you're identified as someone who's got no IQ. You're never able to do anything higher education. So people wrote you off in Britain as having an ability to do higher education, or having a job that would involve you being a graduate or going into higher education college. You're written off, you're viewed as someone who's menial. So the education you got was never to empower you to think you're bigger, bolder, and better. Whereas a person with dyslexia would be empowered. Look, you've got little problems here, but you can be bigger and bolder and better because we know you have the IQ intelligence. I was identified wrongly as having that IQ, but that happened to a lot of working class people. You need to understand, millions of people got written off by the IQ test. The reason I didn't understand what it was, I got a low IQ, because I didn't understand what they were asking me. That is the reason. And what happened was, I got a tutor from 8 years old, and he identified, you don't understand. You understand concepts if I explain it to you, but you can't read it and understand it. That's the test that he did. And a lot of people, what happens is when they're left to just learn themselves, they can't understand the language. But if you broke it down to exactly what you want, they understand, I know what you want. That's why they fail. Do you understand? It's an amazing story. That's how the IQ test wrote of a lot of people. A lot of people did not understand what they were being asked in the English language. They didn't understand it. They needed someone to break it down. I know what that is. I know what they're asking me. Do you get me? Deciphering. They couldn't have that as an individual. Anyway, cut a long story short, I'm an individual for many, many years, over 5 decades now, been involved in improvisational dancing, and I decided that I'm going to become a specialist in it. And because I've used it more than most dancers, I've used intensive improvisation in a wide range of ways, and that just happened through luck. of being in a grassroots community. Grassroots community, basically, as a dancer, I got to do a whole host of what is called issue-based work, and I got to design and develop it and work alongside world experts in the field of health, world experts in the health in the field of racism and its impact on communities, impact world leading people to do with healing and how to engage people in understanding how to engage in healing, etc., etc. Basically, engage with a lot of people in youth arts to do with social, physical, intellectual, cultural, emotional, spiritual, political, economic, technological, environment, legal. Basically, I've used dance as a vehicle to explore the issues I just spoke about. Most dancers never had the opportunity. Secondly, because of my dyslexia, I gravitated towards experiment, and my love for jazz, I should say, as well. I gravitated to experimental projects, no matter where they were around the country. That was my bag. That's what I wanted to do. Now, most dancers never did that, you see. And most of the dancers went on to be professional dancer. I decided most dancers I knew who were in the jazz world, they wanted to go on to be a professional dancer. They mainly wanted to be stage jazz dancers. I did at first, but I gravitated towards the arts. So when opportunity came up to be involved in a commercial development, I would have to go to London or stay in Manchester and become a contemporary dancer, which would give me access to dancing education, dancing in the community, dancing in the theatre, and dancing in the cultural creative industries. I decided I wanted to stay with the art because I like what the art is asking me to define myself. The art is giving me, basically, art was giving me the greatest creative freedom, and being a stage jazz dancer wasn't giving me no freedom. It was basically me executing what a choreographer would give me, where being in the contemporary dance, could be able to do jazz, but I was involved in developing myself and developing others, and that's what I wanted. That's how I like to engage in learning as a person, as an individual. Anyway, cut long story short, it's been a long journey to actually write my practice, because that's what's happening now. Proven, I won Arts Council of Great Britain Creative Cultural Leadership Program. I got an opportunity to go on Arts Council of England's Cultural Creative Leadership Program, a week, 1 day and 3 months, and it was all about developing my artist practice. It was the first time they've ever done a program training for continuous dance training for dancers who want to develop their artist practice. So my artist practice, I model my leadership. I'm an individual who's an independent, interdisciplinary artist. I coach, I mentor, I manage, I initiate projects, do you understand? And part of my work, I have a mission statement to promote the positive images and energy of my cultural heritage arts and wider uses, do you understand? And I use my art in a wider uses. Most dancers don't do that. And it's like a friend of mine, she's involved in the arts, but she's been in coaching people for many years. And we have a similar background, because I've been in coaching dancers for many years to do dance as a hobby, do dance for healing, health, develop the social skills, and do dance as a profession. And because as I said to you, I model what it is, people come to me because, for example, I've performed on most of the great stages in the UK. I performed the Royal Ballet. I performed South Bank. I performed Midland Arts Centre, the Arnolfini, Almeida Theatre. I performed on the Bridgewater, Royal Northern College of Music, Guildhall. In some capacity, through dance and wider arts, I've performed on some of the greatest stages. And so what happens is I was able to train people, coach them for auditions, coach them for performance, particularly to do with performance skills. I've helped a lot of people get onto courses who didn't have a clue, what to expect when they go to go for an audition, but particularly to do with their portfolios. Because I talked about, there's no point you going through onto a course and you're not making sure your portfolio fits that course. They're looking for something for you. And what I like about the arts, they ask you to justify who you are. And I like that, because what it does, it increases your self-awareness. And self-awareness increases your ability to self-lead and lead others. Do you understand? And that's what I like about the arts. They ask you to do portfolios. Do you know what I mean? Photography, film. And it gives you a better opportunity to show yourself. And why I would say that, because I'm a person with dyslexia. And what happened, a person with special education needs, we are doubted that we can do the things that we say. So one of the key things was, anywhere I've gone, I have a professional rhino hide. And what happened, I don't wait for people to stereotype me or tell me I can't do things. I have a portfolio. When I say what I say I do, I can do, I actually show it. And that's one of the greatest things that's been proved to be one of my greatest successes, my unique selling points. I always expect, be stereotyped and to disprove it. Blue Can Jezza's out.